For 2 years, I had 4 reasons not to buy a MacBook. 3 of them were really nonsense. The fourth one was team loyalty, which is also nonsense, but takes longer to admit. This is what 6 months on the laptop I'd been complaining about on photographer forums actually taught me. Mostly that I'd been wrong on the internet, which is somehow always more painful than just being wrong by yourself, right? I'm Jim. I shoot photos and video on the beaches. And this is not a benchmark video. The internet has plenty of those, and most of them are made by people with a desk full of laptops they actually did not pay for. I paid for this one with my own money, and after being annoying as hell about MacBook for years. So I'm slightly biased witness in the direction of please let this purchase have been a good idea, right? It was a good idea, annoyingly. So here's what I was on before, alright? I was on a Dell laptop with better specs on paper than the MacBook I eventually bought. More cores, more RAM, more ports. That's the part that kept me on Windows for an extra 18 months. I trusted the spec sheet. The spec sheet had no idea what it was talking about though. And to be fair, neither did I. So the biggest lie, I believe, was the one that you can measure. Let me show you what daily editing actually looked like before. I'd open DaVinci Resolve and the first half an hour was not editing. The first half an hour was workarounds. And I'd flip the timeline down to 1080p, full HD. I'd build proxies. I'd drop playback to half the quality. And then, if I was lucky, I'd get 15, maybe 20 minutes of work before the laptop overheated and demanded a restart. So videos were a special hell. Self-editing means puzzling, right? So you can't puzzle in 20-minute chunks. You can only forget where you were. So I bought this external cooling fan. I bought a second one when the first one wasn't enough. And I told myself this was a normal thing photographers do, you know? I cannot stress enough that it's not actually. Here is what daily editing looks like now. I open DaVinci Resolve on the MacBook, native 4K timeline, no proxies, and a Dehancer adjustment layer on top with like bloom and halation and the full film look. 20 frames per second of live playback. Sometimes does even more actually, and even on battery. The lid does not even get warm. I have not taken the external cooling fan out of my bag actually in 6 months. It's just still in there like a souvenir from a country I don't want to visit again actually. So that alone changed my creative life insanely, which is a sentence I'd usually mock for being dramatic. Sorry. Before I left the laptop at home most days, it was tied to the speakers, the hard drives, the cooling rig, basically a desktop pretending to be portable. In the way I was pretending to be a mobile creator. Now I close the lid, slide the 14-inch into a sleeve, and I work from a coffee shop. So I work from the back of a minivan, plugging an SD card in, and I start selecting on the way home. I open the lid in a new spot and the system is exactly where I left it. No restart, no data loss, no 5-minute boot, during which I question my life and my career. That sounds small. But 6 months in, it's the single biggest difference in how much I actually enjoy creating. Now, about the migration fears. This is the part where I have to admit I was wrong on almost all accounts. In front of all of you with my full chest actually. Fear 1, the dongles and the locked ecosystem. I'd been told for years that actually switching to a Mac meant rebuying everything. New software, new peripherals, a drawer full of dongles that would cost a lot, a small mocking iPhone in the corner of my desk. Instead, my Windows mouse could just plug in. Right-clicking works. I did not buy a new one. My Sennheiser Bluetooth earbuds, the first generation, they are several years old already, they just paired in seconds, it's no problem. DaVinci Resolve installed also seamlessly. No new licenses or anything. Capture One Pro works, Photoshop works, like the whole Adobe stack. I reinstalled it and signed in and it just ran. Net cost outside the laptop itself, it was 0. I had been preparing for years, like to pay a tax, that did not exist actually. So Fear 2 were actually my hard drives. I run two externals, a 2 terabyte SSD and a 4 terabyte spinning USB drive. The SSD plugged in, read, write, copy, that's all fine. And here's the honest thing though, because I owe you and I have to be honest, I plugged in my 4 terabyte drive. The Mac said read only. Okay, cool. And it's an NTFS formatted Windows drive, and the Mac reads NTFS but doesn't write to it, so without third-party software. So I can pull files from it but not put files on it. So that's one Sunday I'm not getting back on. Like, it's solvable. Reformat, migrate, and done. But the real friction, and I would pretending otherwise, it is like some kind of point you have to fix. Fear number 3 of me were the apps. This is where things got slightly embarrassing. Apps now release on Mac first, is my experience, often by months. So the new ChatGPT browser before Mac, before Windows, Cloud Code, the thing I use to script half of my videos on this channel, it all gets released on the Mac before Windows. I had spent years assuming Mac users were the second-class citizens, sort of. It turned out they were getting early access, while I was waiting for installers that just didn't exist yet. This is the kind of discovery that makes you re-examine your whole life, right? And your choices, briefly. And then you close the tab. Fear number 4 was, for me at least, and that might be, you might recognize this, it was gaming. I told myself a Mac would lock me out of like the whole Steam system. Steam runs on Mac, so the library imports, more games arrive on the platform every quarter. It's not the Windows experience for gaming, and I'm not pretending it is, but for someone who plays just 1 or 2 hours a week to wind down, it is more than enough, which is in retrospect all I ever needed it to be. Now, the day-to-day reality. The chip is more efficient. The fans rarely come on this one, and when they do, it just sounds polite, it's not bothering at all. I get 3 to 4 hours of heavy editing on the battery alone, if it's not more, and the 14-inch is the right size for a traveling creator. Small enough to disappear in a bag, so easy, and big enough that it can dock into 2 external monitors when you're at home. If you're stationary, like get the 16-inch, but if you move, like get the 14 and just dock it. That's the only piece of actual advice in this entire video I'm giving, and suspicious, isn't it? But now the part where the Mac is not perfect though, the trackpad. Color correction in DaVinci is great on the trackpad. It's smooth, precise, and almost annoyingly intuitive. Photoshop with a trackpad is harder though, but that's on any laptop. You miss the versatility of a mouse for fine selection work. So I plug in the mouse always for Photoshop sessions. Trackpad for everything else when you're on the move or in a coffee shop. Not a deal breaker, but worth knowing. So one more workflow piece, because it matters, and well, it would be a bad video if I wouldn't mention it. I used to keep my creative ideas in Notion by hand. I built my own app to do that, part automatically. It pulls video angles out of journal entries. It is an open beta. There's a free trial at the moment now, linked in the description. So if you want to try it, click it. I run the app on this MacBook actually, and it's pretty handful, and it helps me get on content creation ideas faster. You're welcome to try. So anyway, that is the bigger pattern and the only line in this video that comes close to a moral. It's not that Mac does the new things, it's that for me now at least, the Mac removes friction from the things you were already doing. So if you told me 6 months ago that the laptop I'd been complaining about on photographer forums would be the one that I bring to a coffee shop on a Tuesday afternoon, I would have explained to you at length why you were wrong. You would have been right probably. The cooling fan is still in my bag, by the way, and in case I have to apologize to it later. So yeah, that's it. I hope this video helped you. Every piece of gear in this video that I used is, including a laptop I now owe a small apology to, is linked below. Yeah, links on Amazon. Same price for you, small kickback for me. Catch you in the next one. Peace.